Hello and welcome to the Draft Talk podcast. The Draft Talk podcast brings you everything you can need as we are just over 2 weeks-ish away from this year's draft. Crazy. Here in the Draft Talk podcast, we've got all you could possibly need. We've got it all. We've got the works. We've got scouting reports, mock drafts, interviews, and of course, our wonderful top fives, which we are continuing with today. My name is Brian, and I'm delighted to be your host. And we've got joining us today 2/3 of our Draft Talk scouting team. Owen, MJ, how are you doing, guys?
Yeah, all good, Brian. Glad to have you back. I'll be honest, hosting last week, I was a little bit panicked. It's more difficult than you think, trying to remember numbers, names, and trying to keep everyone in check. So glad to have you there. And yeah, we're moving on to one of the position groups. The position group that I find the most difficult to scout. And there are some good names, but also some lack of depth. So we'll get into these.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Brian. And we've just finished recording a special episode where I ended up in the box seat, and I can echo Owen's comments. It is really difficult hosting, so glad to have you in the chair for this one. And yeah, let's dive in on these linebackers because, as Owen said, it's a difficult position to look at.
Yeah, let's get going indeed. You may have noticed Stu isn't with us. He's having a week off to spend a bit of time with his family. Hope he's having a wonderful time. I'll be giving Stu's top fives. We're doing linebackers today. As Owen mentioned, it can be a bit hit and miss. It's a bit tough, bit of a tough class to scout. But let's get going. Of course, our top fives. We're going to go 5 up to 1, with 1 being the best. And seeing who we like for this year's draft class. So, linebackers, let's get going. Owen, kick us off. Who's your number 5 linebacker?
I'm just going to call a quick timeout because we didn't manage to do it on the last one. I want to know what's going on with the mustache.
Oh, you know what? It looks better not on the Zoom thing, but when we got on it before, and we did it in the room, so we did the interview, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's a bit much, isn't it? But it's I'm sort of the promo team for the Mario and Luigi film that's coming out soon. Part of that. Yeah, it might have to go.
Are you? You stunt double something like that for one of them.
Yeah. They're really desperate.
Anyway, linebackers. Number 5 for me. So kicking off the top fives, my number 5 is Dorian Williams from Tulane, and I'll be honest, it's difficult to pick, especially after the top 3, 4, and 5. There's not really a correct answer, I don't think. So Dorian Williams is just a guy that I really like. He is one of the best coverage linebackers in this class. He's got a huge wingspan. He's extremely rangy. He's also quick and tested really well and better than a lot of people thought. He is just a coverage guy, I would say, but he's a guy that can play sideline to sideline. He's really good in pursuit as well, where he has the traits to hunt down runners, and he's also really good at tackling as well. So when he gets there, he's able to cope. Also got really good football IQ. He's able to spot the gaps, got the instant acceleration to hit them. Spatial awareness is top notch. Can stick with both receivers and tight ends in coverage, where not all linebackers are big enough and strong enough to cope with tight ends. So that's really good. And just a really high motor and fantastic athlete. Weaknesses, I would like to see him be a little bit stronger at times. He's not able to shed blocks particularly well, and like to see him use his hands a little bit better to aid that. And right now, I think he's better off attacking the outside rather than having the strength profile to fight through the box when attacking the line of scrimmage. But I think from what he can give you as a coverage linebacker, he can see the field on day one, and really that's enough to get you in the top 5.
Yep. So agree. I've got him in at number 4. This is a surprise. I knew we'd have some agreement a little bit later in the episode, but yep, near enough agreement. Number 4 for me. Loved him as soon as I was watching. He's a definite, as you say, he's a definite kind of read react kind of player. Coverage. I mean, it's amazing. The passer rating against him was like 67.1. And in watching him on the tape, it's like he's a mind reader. He kind of like stands there for a second and then he's off, and the direction he's going in is usually where that ball is going. Absolutely loved him. He makes a lot of tackles. He doesn't miss too many. His volume of tackles is high. He's right up there in this linebacker class. He's got the second highest number of stops for this season, which is where the offense, it's technically like a failed play. They haven't made as many yards as they should have done on that play. So really, really good. He does, because he's a smaller guy, he's one of those tacklers, and I've got another one of these where they kind of launch into the tackles. They're not using their strength to tackle. It's that build-up speed and then going from it. Doesn't miss many. It did mean that he had a couple of issues kind of earlier on with a bit of where it was thought to be targeting, and where it could tip over into potentially getting ejected. But I think that's more to do with the fact he knows who he is. He knows he's 6'1", 228 pounds. He's going to have to build some speed up to get some of these guys down. But just for his footballing IQ and in on those passing downs, he had a much improved 2022. When you look back at his career, 2021, a little bit of a down year. This year, he's improved on almost every metric going, whether it was his pass rushing, his coverage, even his run defense. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, and I've got Dorian Williams in at number 4.
Lovely stuff. Well, as Stu's representative, he doesn't have Dorian Williams as his number 5. He has Owen Papau from Auburn. Sorry. I was too busy stressing about Papau's surname there that I said Auburn wrong. But yeah, just a
you
crazy.
said the surname wrong as well. You're all right.
Well, this is why I'm just hosting it. Not have to do any complicated reading. But yeah, Stu says he's a hell of an athlete. Play along ability, needs to be more consistent. But yeah, I mean, he's a crazy athlete. 4.39 40-yard dash at the combine. Teams are going to love speed like that. But yeah, not very consistent. I don't know. But yeah, he's not in your top 5, so maybe Stu special for you there.
Yeah, he's like an athletic freak. He's one that's been hovering around kind of top 5 linebackers, what feels like the last 3 seasons now. But he's just a superb athlete. There's absolutely nothing more you can say. But the reason I do like him, the reason why I didn't have him in the top 5 is just trying to do something different. Because, say, I do struggle with linebackers more than any others, and in prior seasons I have maybe gone for athletes rather than the guys who were more intelligent, and I've just this season tried to put more emphasis on the anticipation and the awareness, because that tends to be what makes a successful linebacker in year one. You can't teach that. So that's why I didn't have him there, but absolutely superb athlete. And I think he might be kind of a middle of day 3 kind of guy, but the movement skills are off the charts.
Yeah, not a lot to add on that one. He, outside of my top 5, twitchy as hell, great athlete. But there just wasn't something I could hang my hat on in terms of getting him into that top 5. Somebody will like him, but he's again a little bit like in talking about Williams. He is on that end of flying around the field. He's not gonna be helping you to stuff up the middle of the field, and on run defense, he's not going to have a great deal of impact there. But good player. But yeah, just outside my top 5.
Lovely stuff. Well, MJ, tell us who snuck into your top 5.
Right, who snuck into my top 5? And I'm still in that kind of category of kind of quicker guys who are flying around the pitch. So Diane Henley from Washington State came in at 5. A couple of seasons at Nevada, transferred to Washington State. To put it all together in the last season. Real, again, twitched up, tackling machine. Previously a wide receiver, so shows that athleticism, demonstrates that kind of knowledge and footballing IQ as well in the passing game. He's got good range, and he can track very well. He can also break through the lines quite well. He's not going to shed blocks, but he's going to find some gaps to break through that line. And he breaks really fast, and he is then coming for you. And his missed tackle rate was among the best. He doesn't miss many either. And the reason why he was 5 instead of 4 is, although he is a decent guy coverage wise, there are I think they're the highest number of 20-yard plus plays in coverage. I think he had 5 where he's something's broken down there, and it's a 20-yard plus play on coverage. So although he's good at it, there are the occasional lapses in concentration. I think and that's why in the end I just got Dorian Williams ahead of Henley, sort of similar-ish in terms of the way they go about this particular role. But I did really like Henley, and he had a good Senior Bowl, and he started to move up draft boards, and he's really highly rated. I think PFF have him as their favourite linebacker.
I have as my 4th favourite linebacker. So after all we said, this has gone a lot smoother than I expected. Just echoing what MJ said there, absolutely elite tackler. He only missed 5 tackles on 97 attempts in the 2022 season. Mightily impressive, and that just shows because his instincts and his football IQ are just off the charts. He's always in the right place at the right time. I think in coverage, he recognises routes really well. Yes, as MJ said, that kind of in his weaknesses you would like to see. He kind of he tends to sit back a little bit too much, which means that his anticipation is kind of off with his timing. So I'd like to see him especially when you play in the box, just to play a little bit closer to the line where you don't get caught staring at the quarterback's eyes trying to work out what's happening. But yeah, versatile enough. Say when he is in coverage, most of the time it's excellent. Versatile enough to blitz, can go sideline to sideline, more than good enough as an athlete. And I think his acceleration really shows up when he is blitzing and when he can change direction. And when you consider that he was at Nevada as a receiver and then transferred to Washington State and converted to linebacker, has only been playing 2 seasons at linebacker. What we've seen from Daiyan Henley has been really impressive in that short space of time.
And just to round it up, Stu's got him as his number 4 as well. Nice and tidy, that, wasn't it, Ish? We'll throw a bit of a spanner in the works, a Stu spanner, we'll call it. Stu's number 3 is Henry 2020, who makes neither of your guys top 5. I'll ruin that a little bit. He's got more of a weak side linebacker, instinctive, physical, good run defender. I know he had a bit of hype going into this year's college season, but maybe hasn't lived up to it. Guys, what are your thoughts? Stu likes him. You guys maybe not so much.
I like him, but not as much as Stu does. That kind of he's a guy that you know what you're going to get from. He's got extremely good leadership skills. Was at Tennessee, transferred to Alabama. Is one of those kind of quarterback of the defense type players. His communication skills are exceptional, especially pre-snap. He can work everything out. Really good eyes, football brain. The IQ is really what stands out with Henry To'oTo'o. He's good enough athlete, not exceptional, but good enough. But it's kind of what he does, disguising and kind of communicating, that really impressed me with him. He's just such a clean prospect. Now, what I would like to see from him is a lot more anticipation. He is a react guy. He doesn't anticipate at all. And when it goes well, it goes really well. But when it doesn't, he's completely flat-footed and completely out. And I would like to see his tackling be a little bit more assured. I don't know if you want to talk about Henry To'oTo'o, MJ, but Stu's gone maverick this season. Don't know what's happened to him, what's going on in Stu's personal life, but something's happened because he's gone maverick this season. Who doesn't he have in the top
holidays?
3?
The thing I really like here is he's got his players who he really likes, doesn't he? And he will be. I'd love to see him in a draft room, like banging the table for guys. And this is one of the ones that I'm sure he would be. He'd be banging the table for him. I mean, good player in flashes. I don't have I haven't got a lot of comments on him because I dismissed him reasonably early. I think he came in about 9th for me, something like that. Fairly average in traits for me, and I have got here bit slow to adapt. It's unspectacular. It almost is when it's bad, it's almost in slow motion, the way he's reacting to what's going on in front of him and then starting to churn through. Because again, he's similar to the ones that we've talked about in that he's just over 6 foot, 220-ish pounds, and I just didn't see the didn't see the level of athleticism and speed and reaction that we've got in other guys that we've had in the top 5 so far.
Good stuff. All right then, MJ, we'll start with you. Give us your number 3, please.
Okay, so this is a guy who I found a little bit difficult to find the right sort of spot for him, and I think I'm happy with where I've got him now. Number 3, I've got Trenton Simpson from Clemson. So a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, 6'2", 235 pounds, moves really well. And he's the one who I liken the most to sort of like this missile that's coming after you. I think he has got good range. He's a very fluid athlete, and he will run you down. The thing that I liked about him was he's one of those guys who he could have a really good role potentially as like a spy on very mobile quarterbacks. He could be the kind of guy that you use for that, kind of guy that you use for read option sort of plays. We're into a guy now who spends more of his time rushing the passer as well. He was up close to about 20% of the time he was in on pass rushing. And he's with his physique, he could also be somebody who is quite often with linebackers, they talk about the potential for them to be a tight end eraser. You know, if you're going up against a team that's got good tight ends, they use tight ends a lot in their receptions. You probably are going to need a decent linebacker to try and take care of them. He's a bit more of a kind of a boom tackler. He really likes to get in there, and he likes that contact. But he is still learning the role, and I think there are aspects of it that he's still got to get to grips with. One of them is around coverage as well. So I think he could be really, really good, but then he could have some growing pains, and he fits into this kind of category where we've had some really good prospects come out, and it hasn't quite worked out. You know, the likes of like Devin Bush from a couple of years ago hasn't quite worked out for him. He's now gone to Seattle from Pittsburgh. We'll see if it works out there. Patrick Queen was another one that sprung to mind, where it was only when they brought Roquan Smith in, and then as soon as he was in there with Patrick Queen got better as well off the back of having Roquan Smith in there as well. So I think he'd need some experience around him, but I think there's good potential there in Trenton Smith, so he came in at number 3.
Yeah, and that hit rate, I suppose, shows, doesn't it, that you, to be successful as a linebacker, you almost have to have a complete room, that you can't ask one linebacker to do everything. They all have to complement each other. I really like Trenton Simpson, and I have him quite clearly as the number 1 guy in this class. And the same way that when we've done previous episodes and spoken about Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy coming from this Clemson defense, which does no favors at all for guys entering the NFL. It's such a strange system that they operate that you almost have to use your imagination to see their role in the NFL. But Trenton Simpson is a guy, I think, if whatever you wanted him to do, whatever role you wanted to use him for, he could do it. I like him better in coverage than you, MJ. I completely understand what you're saying, and I do agree with a lot of it, but I do like him more in coverage. Extremely athletic, he can cover ground really well because of the power and the size that he has. I think he's really good at reading as well. He can shut down plays. I think you can basically play him wherever you want, anywhere you want, and he's lined up all over the field as well. Can fight through traffic when he's covering, even when he's coming down blitzing, he's able to do that. His size means he can be a matchup for any position in the NFL. I think he's active on every play as well. His footwork's really strong. And it's just his mental toughness and his mentality and his football IQ. I mean, he understands the role of every player on the field, and kind of he knows his role in that, and he knows how to complement everyone else. And you know, he understands what's happening on every play, and he reads and he plans accordingly. I think he's just a rare player who has the ability to both rush the passer, and if you wanted him to cover as a nickel, I think he could do it. You might not want him to, but I think he could, and say he's even blitzing from the outside, he can do that as well. I really like Trenton Simpson. I think he can overshoot his gaps sometimes, and he can be a little bit over aggressive in his hand usage and with his athleticism. But as an explosive guy, I think he's just a guy that matches what I was on about before, the intelligence that I'm kind of starting to edge towards at this position. He combines that intelligence with the athleticism, where some of these guys, I don't think pair them as nicely as Trenton Simpson does. So yeah, I'm all in on Trenton Simpson.
Good stuff. Yep, Stu likes him too. Stu has him at number 2, and yeah, you totally covered all the points he said. He did mention teams might want to be, like you say, these Clemson defenders. Teams might want to be careful, or he could end up like Isaiah Simmons.
Well, yeah,
from Clemson
yeah.
A couple of years ago. Oh, and give us your number 2.
Okay, so my number, Drew Sanders from Arkansas, and he's a player that the more I watch, the more I end up liking. Actually, he's just started with transferred over, was at Alabama as an edge rusher, couldn't see the field, moves to Arkansas, moves further back towards being a linebacker rather than just a pure pass rusher. And boy, has he got the mentality that you want in a linebacker. Physical, tough, and he's just pure nasty. His play style is incredible. It's so fun to watch, and there's going to be little teams that go, I want that guy on my team just because of what he brings you in intense physicality. I think he's got the highest ceiling of all these guys because he's so raw at the position, but he's just a straight up bully. He's fierce as a pass rusher, as you would expect, being prior being an edge and just transitioning slightly. But the growth that he's had, having only played 1 year at the position, is absolutely incredible. He hits all the size measurables. He hits all the athleticism measurables. He can play. At Arkansas last year, he played all over and he aligned everywhere as well. He did a little bit of everything. I mean, of course, he is best as a blitzer currently. We know that because he used to be an edge. So when we talk about his pros and cons, we go, well, he's just so good at blitzing. Well, yeah, because that's what he's done for forever. He's just learning a new skill set, and he has the traits and the tools to be able to do it. Great athlete, super speedy, able to chase down runners, able to chase down the quarterback, as we've seen from his rushing ability. I think his athleticism can bail him out at such a kind of raw. Going to say age, but not age in terms of like he's only played a year. So, but his athleticism can make up for some of his shortcomings, and his skill set is just so strong. Patient, learning. He can drop into coverage if you want. I think you want him playing the line, but you can drop into coverage if you want to. Weaknesses, is very raw. Is a developmental prospect. Needs to gain more consistency, especially against the run. And yes, he's going to need to improve some of the IQ, but he's more reactive than anticipatory at the moment. But there's a whole lot there to like about Drew Sanders. And if you've got a coach that you think, I'll take this guy and I'll mold him to what we want him to be, then I don't think you're going to go wrong. There's going to be a lot of teams interested in Drew Sanders.
Yeah, so I really like Drew Sanders as well, and I put him at number 2. Completely echo what you said there. He came across for me as potentially the most aggressive, and that comes back to him being an edge rusher. And I think what he's done is kind of moved position and yet kept all of those traits and remembered all those traits from edge rushing in his new role as a linebacker. And you're absolutely right. At the moment, he's best coming downhill. He's best being on the front foot, being aggressive. He's got very quick hands. He was the best guy that I thought in terms of being able to lift offensive linemen off their feet. He was. He's very good at reading where the blockers are as well. He's as you said, all of these guys who I think we're looking at, that footballing IQ as a linebacker is really, really important because you can look real silly if you get it wrong. The issue for me, and this is where he's coming at number 2, and this is me, going against type here, because normally I'd have seen a missed tackle rate of something like 19% and like gone next. That is a bit of a concern, and he can absolutely whiff on a tackle, especially open field, and that's something he's going to have to get used to. He's very reliant on kind of arm tackles at the moment, but everything else is there. And absolutely, he could, highest ceiling wise, that this could be the guy, highest ceiling wise. But he is still very raw at the position, so there'll be some things that the right NFL coaching staff will have to work through. But the potential is absolutely there for Drew Sanders.
Yeah, for me, between him and the other guy, which we're still yet to close, but it's extremely close. I wouldn't be surprised if before we get to draft week, I've changed my mind and moved them, to be honest, because so I've just given my rankings there and I've got different numbers beside them. So I've just given Drew Sanders as number 3, and he's got a number 2 beside him because I couldn't make my mind up that close down to. So it's super close. I mean, between these top 3 for me, there isn't a correct answer.
Stu would disagree. He doesn't have Drew Sanders at all.
Yeah, he's wrong though.
He could be. He's not here, so we'll say he's definitely wrong.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree on that. But yeah, as you mentioned, there's one guy left. MJ is your number 1, so I'll give you the honours.
Okay, and I completely forgot to put my I'm just showing my Iowa hoodie up. That's where we're headed to. So number 1 for me is Jack Campbell. And again, this is somebody who I think a couple of months ago when I was first looking at linebackers, I wouldn't have necessarily had him, at number 1 from the off. But he is, I think he's probably, if you were in a draft room and you were talking about linebackers and perhaps you'd had the discussion about Drew Sanders, you've got a highest ceiling guy and you've got a highest floor guy. And Jack Campbell might be the highest floor guy. And he might be a safer prospect, which means he might actually be drafted, after somebody like Drew Sanders or even after somebody like Trenton Simpson. It just depends on, as we keep coming back to, what you've already got in your linebacker room. But he is always involved. He's always around the ball. He's a true kind of middle linebacker. He's a true leader, and he could be a captain of a defense. And this is a very, very difficult position, as we keep talking about the evolution of this position. And we, perhaps we might touch on it when we talk about safeties as well. And after you get past that defensive line, what do you want these guys to do? Do you want them to cover? That's becoming more and more important. Do you still need them to be able to rush the passer as well and contribute to that? And he's turned out to be more athletic than we thought, and more athletic than I thought from watching the tape. He actually came in from the combine results, I think, as the number 1 rated athlete. So he's, again, in terms of the stats are all there. He's up there in terms of number of tackles per game. He is right up there in terms of either tackles or assisting on tackles. Doesn't miss many tackles. Plays with an intensity and an aggression. He likes coming downhill as well, but he's kind of able to do everything. The thing that I would say, the slight kind of knock is, it doesn't appear from looking at him that he doesn't appear as sudden as a couple of the other guys, as sort of Drew Sanders and Trenton Simpson. It's not as instant in the play speed, but he probably makes up for that in his recognition of what's going on in front of him, and then getting to that point of attack, that point of the tackle. He got the award for the 2022 award, the Dick Butkus, try saying that fast, award for top linebacker. And I think there's been a lot of chatter about him as we've gone through this draft process that, if you are looking for a linebacker, Jack Campbell should be really right up there in amongst your thoughts. So I've got him coming in as number 1.
Yeah, I have him at number 2. In terms of scout report, I don't suppose I have a lot more to add there. Just his play style is just an absolute thumper at the line of scrimmage, but has the coverage skills and to stick with anyone. It's his football IQ, it's the awareness, it's the leadership that you get from him that makes him so good. The question marks all season for Jack Campbell has been, we don't know how athletic he is, and that is athletic. And how we thought he would test was worrying. Now, of course, he then comes out and has a fantastic combine, answers any athleticism questions. But MJ, I suppose you can maybe chime in on this as well. That almost left thinking, why did I not see that on film? And that's a question that you have to ask yourself, that we know he's got the athletic testing, but every time you've watched film, you've gone, this guy's not a great athlete. So what you then have to weigh that up about why that's happened. I agree with what you said there, MJ, but I'd just like to say the getting off blocks quicker, it's just the change of direction. I still would question some of the athletic ability. He's had a great test, but I'm not sure I completely saw it on film.
I absolutely. That was exactly the thing, was when those combine results came in, and we've talked about this before. You know, those results come in, then you go back and look at the tape and go, have I missed something here?
Yeah.
And you're watching the tape going, I don't think I have missed it. He doesn't appear to be, that fast. If you'd have lined up, 5 or 6 of the top linebackers and said, okay, rank what their combine results will come in as, I don't think he'd have been in the top 3 of those, the top 6 that you'd have looked at, and yet he has. So he's been able to do it at the combine. But I would be with you on that. I'm still slightly worried about the actual play speed.
Yeah, and that's why I would worry more about playing him, especially deep into coverage. I guess I think if you want to just have a box player, then just to manage the box, and I think Jack Campbell's great. But I would worry especially if he's somehow got to cover a running back out of the backfield, and I would worry about him keeping up there. And I did feel like his tackling could have been a little bit more assured at time. He plays hard, and he's so physical. I suppose it's maybe a bit nitpicking, but I would have liked to have seen him be more of a short tackler at times. But there's an awful lot to like about Jack Campbell. This off season he's been training with Luke Kuechly as well, so that will never do anyone any harm. And therefore, the Buffalo Bills rumours have started because of the links between that organisation in terms of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and the Panthers with Luke Kuechly there. So. And obviously an open spot. So those rumours are quite strong at the moment. If they wanted to take him back end of the first round, I don't think you're going to get many people disagreeing with you, because he's an instant impact guy, that's for sure.
Yeah, just to round it off, Stu also had him as his number 1. Size, intelligence, and tackling ability, true middle linebacker, best all-rounder is Stu's summary there. So there we go. That's our top 5 linebackers. You joked you didn't have any, but just in case you do, have you got any extras that you want to throw in there for an honourable mention?
A guy that I really like, but I would think his role is probably limited at the next level, that's Ivan Pace Jr. from Cincinnati. He is just a pure blitzer, and I'm not sure you'd want him doing much else. His stats are absolutely unreal. 13 games in 2022, 9 sacks, 20.5 tackles for a loss. And you saw him at the Senior Bowl. He's flying around everywhere. He's just, if he sees a lane, you're not getting away from him. Sorry. So yeah, it's very, very strong prospect, but he will be targeted in coverage if that's what you have him to do. That's being polite. So. Absolutely absurd blitzer, but might struggle. But he's a guy that certainly has a role to play.
So I got 2 other ones that I wanted to just mention. One was Noah Sewell. People remember Penei Sewell coming out a couple of years ago. So Noah Sewell, bigger guy, bigger linebacker prospect. Real kind of downhill thumper. He is definitely only going one way, and there's much less subtlety around what he does. But in terms of if you that's what you were looking for, somebody who is going to break through the line, who is going to help you run defense wise, who's going to help you pass rush. Noah Sewell would be one.
Do you think he might transition to edge?
I think it's there. I think he's got the measurables, hasn't he? I think he could definitely see himself more on the D line, right up there on that D line, as opposed to, because he's not going to be much good going the other way, and he's not going to be much good going sideline to sideline. He is one direction, and then the other guy. And the other guy, just because his season got cut short, is Cam Jones at Indiana. So I watched some of Cam Jones, and he had a pretty rough 2021 in terms of his stats, but his 2022 was on the way up in terms of the tackling that he was getting through. He's another guy I think he's a more kind of downhill linebacker, but I liked what I saw from the early season stuff, and then he got a foot injury. I'd really like to have seen what he'd have done across an entire season. So I'm intrigued to just see how he gets on as well.
Lovely stuff. Well, before we go, give us a quick wrap up. O-line, give us your top 5 again, please.
Okay, so my top five linebackers were Dorian Williams from Tulane at 5. Number 4 was Diane Henley from Washington State. 2, it was Drew Sanders from Arkansas. At 3. Where am I going? At 3, it was Drew Sanders from Arkansas. Number 2 was Jack Campbell from Iowa, and number 1 was Trenton Simpson from Clemson.
Okay. And for me, similar names, just a slightly different order. So 5, Diane Henley. Number 4, Dorian Williams. Number 3, Trenton Simpson. Number 2, Drew Sanders. And number 1, Jack Campbell.
Fantastic. And Stu's were number 5, Owen Papo. Number 4, Diane Henley. Number 3, Henry 2020. Number 2, Trenton Simpson. And number 1, Jack Campbell. There we go. That's the linebackers done. How exciting. If you've not listened already, we've also done wide receivers, running backs, edge rushers, O-line, D-line. Oh, there's loads of prospects. There's loads of stuff to check out. And of course, we've got a few big classes remaining to do before this year's draft. In the meantime, of course, check out the Twitter at 99 yards. I think we'll put a poll on there to see who your favourite linebacker is. I think we're still doing that, right? Yeah, We're still. Oh, we can do. We're definitely doing that. Check that out. And of course, if you're not already, go on the YouTube, like, subscribe. That'll be fantastic. You'll get to see all MJ's props, my silly mustache. It's all on there. But thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week. Take care. Bye.